Jack, how would you describe yourself? What's your role here?
I've been following salmon survival incidents and destruction since the 90s. And so I come up here every year just to check on these fish and some other creeks around this area because I love them. I love the creeks. They're really productive. They're called a gem, actually, even by DFO for their production.
Okay.
So
you do this just on your own. So you're kind of like a citizen scientist here.
well, yeah, I'm a columnist,
Okay.
you know, an environmental columnist, and and I make videos and stuff like that.
But you're not working for anybody. And you're
No,
working
I'm totally independent.
Describe what is this creek? Where are we, and what is this?
Okay, this is called Worth Creek, and it's just down the road from Hawkins Pickle Road past Dewdney, and just beyond Norris Creek, which is a busy coho recreational fishery. And it has produced since 1947. DFO's been keeping records up to 3,500 coho in this creek, and the survival rate for these coho is about 4 times what it would be in a normal creek like Norris, because the water's clean and clear, and it's great gravel for spawning. And on December 5th, I was up here having a look again, and I saw hundreds of spawned out salmon sitting on bone-dry gravel. And I knew immediately that those eggs were probably dead. DFO later confirmed to me that their people had noticed the same dry condition on the 2nd of December, which confirmed that they're probably all dead. And I reported this immediately to the DFO hotline and asked for a phone call. Didn't get one, so started making my own phone calls to DFO personnel. One of them was the person that monitors this creek and counts them, and he told me they didn't notice it because they weren't funded to count fish in this creek this year, 2024. So and then he told me who's in charge of the possible investigation of what's going on, because they had no clue, and that's Habitat Protection. So I contacted Mr. Manson of Habitat Protection, and he told me they're scratching their heads, they don't know what to do, but they're very concerned because this is a gem, and they're concerned about the loss of eggs in this creek. So that's taken me to this moment.
What's your understanding of why the creek went dry when it did?
Well, what I was told was it had to do with water diversion from Norris Creek, which feeds water into this creek through the gravel, and gravel removal. We can hear that going on right now. Gravel over there. Gravel removal from Norris Creek, which lowered the water table and caused the drop of water level in this creek.
Who's removing the gravel from Norris Creek?
DFO tells me that CP Rail is.
And they had a recent operation to take gravel out?
DFO tells me they were given a letter of advice, which is sort of a get-out-of-jail card, to use their own discretion on the amount of gravel that they removed so it wouldn't impact fish and habitat.
DFO told you that they issued this letter
Yes.
to CP?
Yes.
Why does CP want to take gravel out?
I have no idea, but you know, this is what I want DFO to tell us. I want them to tell us exactly what's going on here, why they are allowing it, what the gravel is being used for, is it being sold, who's selling it, and why they haven't enforced the Fisheries Act to prevent damage to habitat.
How long have you been coming up here and taking a look at the creeks and tributaries?
I spent a little time working for DFO back in the 90s, and I can come out here since then. My wife and I come up every year and have a look and watch.
You've been coming up here for decades.
Yeah.
Given you feel like you have a connection to this place and to this ecosystem, what did it feel like for you to come up and see the dry state of things?
Well, this is heartbreaking. You know, we're in desperate need to protect coho in this province. And here are these coho being totally wasted, you know, through negligence.
My name's Marvin Rosenau, and I'm a former instructor at BCIT in fisheries and freshwater fisheries biologist for the most part throughout my career.
So, tell us about the value of Worth Creek here from an ecological perspective in the salmon area.
Well, it's a gorgeous little groundwater stream. Groundwater streams are really important for coho and chum salmon. And I walked this stream, it's already into early January, and you can still see a lot of chum carcasses and an awful lot of coho carcasses. So coho have been decimated over the last 20 or 30 years, and there's a lot this year. And in the stream, there was a lot of carcasses. Ecologically, eagles, I saw an eagle, massive eagle. He seemed bored, he didn't even hardly fly away from me. Seagulls, bears, raccoons, the invertebrate production as the carcasses decompose, they melt into the nitrogen and phosphorus. So it generates that sort of big cycle of life. It's a nutrient pump that keeps this whole ecosystem, plants, animals, going.
If you look around the region, as far as good prime coho habitat, how does this stack up?
Well, historically, these coho habitats that are groundwater fed, like this one, are really special. Not a lot of them left because of development, but this one has had its problems because of its linked to the groundwater associated with Norris Creek, and Norris or Suicide Creek has had a lot of development, particularly the CP rail bridge maintenance has been a real issue. And so the groundwater that feeds this stream appears to be profoundly affected, and potentially this year, as an example, the amount of cuts and erosion that you can see both downstream and upstream of the bridge through gravel removal is just massive. I've never seen something so unreal as what I saw here.
Okay. We have pictures that Jack took when he came up here and first noticed that it was bone dry.
Yep.
For some time in December. There was dead fish. We don't know whether those fish had spawned or not. Is that a worrisome thing, or is that normal? For this to go dry, how bad is it at all bad for the coho spawning salmon for it to dry out?
Well, I saw the pictures, photographs, and a lot of dead carcasses. We need to know whether or not they had spawned or not. And just to see a dry stream with a bunch of dead carcasses, like wow, how did that happen? Okay, and this is a groundwater fed stream; it should be pretty stable. So if the drop in groundwater elevation to the surface stranded them and killed them, that's pretty serious. Even if they've spawned though, and the eggs, so the developing embryos are incubating, and you drop that water surface elevation below the gravel surface, those things have nowhere to go, and so they would have potentially been killed as well. So seeing these drying groundwater streams that should be stable, temperature, flow, nutrients, and all that kind of stuff is pretty serious.
Okay. So if they died before they could spawn, that's a problem.
Yep.
Or if they had spawned and then it dried out, could have killed the eggs, that's a problem. So any way you look at it, what's been going on here, this is at the very least suboptimal conditions for what should normally be really good coho.
Well, coho don't come back to habitats like this if they are persistently killed. They come back to good habitats, because if they don't, they get selected out pretty quickly. And so there's a lot of carcasses there now. DFO or First Nations have been doing stock assessment. They've chopped them in half as they're part of their counting. So these fish know to come here. Okay. There's some hatchery fish that are mixed from the Inch Creek hatchery, but the whole watershed, these fish want to come here. And so if man's intervention has somehow changed the flow dynamics, the subsurface discharge dynamics, and you're killing fish every year after year after year after this big gravel removal. Gravel removal occurred as a post 2021 atmospheric river event. If they took way too much out, and in the 1990s I was part of gravel removal referrals on this. We never ever would have approved kinds of amounts of material that have come out. It looks to me like the whole river is eroding under the bridge, ahead of the bridge, below the bridge, simply because of the massive amount of gravel that now is part of the gravel industry.
You have experience, and we've talked to you before on stories about gravel removal.
Yep.
Your sense is, you think just in general, there's a lot of cases where they're just taking too much gravel out, and it's not warranted.
I'm not opposed to gravel removal for flood protection if it's done using proper engineering and biological techniques. This particular project on Suicide Norris Creek looks to me as pure environmental rape. That's all I can describe it as, is pure environmental rape.
Yeah, so we're looking at a proposed mine permit here. We are currently on the north side of the track, north side of the CPR rail track. The creek we were looking at, Worth Creek, is on the south side. It's fed by a culvert that goes underneath the bridge into this ditch that goes along here. So groundwater in this entire area is feeding this way to the south and flooding into Worth Creek. And one of the things we're seeing is with the groundwater fluctuation, the creek is drying up. If they mine this area here and they take the gravel out of here, they're going to seriously disrupt the
This
groundwater.
particular one,
And Worth Creek will essentially dry up. There's no question. I mean, it's already drying up now with intact ground. Once they dig pits and take the gravel out, they're going to have to dewater as part of their process to make sure that they can keep working in here. So they're going to lower the groundwater table even further, and we can just say goodbye to Worth. Minimum flow requirements for salmon in these streams have been known for 40 years.
Okay.
Right? Since 1979, when they identified what the minimum flow requirements are. But since then, there's just been ongoing, more and more gravel extraction, more and more lowering the water table. And you saw that video I sent you. There's no flow, none. Surface flow is nothing. In fact, above the railroad bridge is a road that goes right across the river, the creek channel, with a 30-centimeter culvert. That's the only option for water coming down that creek bed to go down past that road. Process, like the environmental assessment, was calling for mitigation.
Okay, did you
The First Nations were promised mitigation to ensure that the works that are being done would restore habitat.
Where did you hear that or read that?
It was in the actual environmental assessment is archived.
Oh, you've seen it, huh?
It had no, not the actual assessment. It just has the scope of the purpose of the work, the what's going to be done, and what the decision was.
Send it.
My name is John Werring. I'm a retired biologist. I've been a member of the College of Applied Biology, or I was, for going on 35 years. Recently withdrew from the college, but I have a long history of working with people like Marvin on gravel extraction, fish habitat protection in the Lower Mainland and throughout the province for the most part.
Then the river has to find its natural elevation again. And so it erodes gravel from upstream and erodes gravel from, so there's this whole dynamic of erosion that lowers. So they're trying to leave some stability, but this.
So, you see that bank on the third side there, how high it is? Yeah. How eroded it is? Yeah. So normally, a river or a stream like this would have one major, what they call foul, where the water flows in snakes, right? Right. But they're digging all these holes and they're spreading everything out. Yeah. And now when you get a flood, the majority of the water might come down this side and take out this bank. It might go on that side over there, take out that bank. It might go, So it's just causing nothing.
Beautiful creek, eh?
Yeah, it is. So the previous years when you saw this, how much higher was it?
Well, John is the guy to talk. He says this road would have been underwater normally. This is where the water level would have been normal. According to John.
Well, that's a big drop. That's what, 20 feet?
Yeah. Look at that beautiful pool.
It's reported in that mission record thing, guys. I can send you a copy of it too. It was called "It's Only Ankle Deep." Somebody wrote a story where you talked about you have to jump off the bridge there to go swimming and stuff,
Yeah.
and they said no, it's only ankle deep. And it was in there that it states that the local First Nation, Wet'suwet'en or whatever,
Lekahamel.
with DFO and with CPR on this project. And actually, Lekahamel were going to be doing the environmental monitoring, but it also states that they were told that mitigation measures would be taken to ensure.
Where's the riparian vegetation?
Oh, where's the mitigation in it? What are they mitigating?
A whole series of channels that were dewatered. I think it may have been the river was eroded so much that they used it as a borrow pit or a storage pit maybe.
Well, I see the natural stream on the full side.
It's 4 feet higher. You know, the old river, you know, is 4 or 5 feet higher than it is now.
They are saying that this is flood control.
Well, sure it is.
Yeah, but the bridge is up there. What's this got to do with the bridge, right?
Trust me, it's, you know, they're basically lowering the stream bottom.
Well, I know they are.
Like,
yeah.
but the question is, like, you know, because they're going to get, they're looking at backwatering effects. Okay, so they're trying to minimize the backwatering effects by lowering the downstream. Okay, you know, this is definitely flood control, but it's just so absolutely massive. Like Vetter doesn't have anything like this.
No.
You know? It's just...
What did you say about this flood control, Marvin? How would you assess this flood control?
Well, the downstream removals is to reduce backwatering, to reduce the upstream progression of water when a big amount of water comes down. So if you lower the downstream end, then that means that the surface elevation of the water tips in that direction and in a downward direction. So, and I understand what we in the 1990s would have allowed removals to take place, but this is like, you know, this is like the Columbia River or something, volumetrically in comparison to take out. It's just stunning, and you know how much material they take out.
Are we standing on what used to be a riverbed?
Yes, because they built up this dike. So the dike is massive. Like, you don't even see dikes this wide on the Vetter. And so why this dike was permitted, why there's no riparian vegetation as a mitigation or compensation, I have absolutely no idea. Restoration, you know, these are just great big old pits. They won't be completely sterile, you know, something always lives in them, but that is not classical salmon spawning habitat or steelhead spawning habitat. You know, coho might like to rear in it, but I don't know. It's just I've never seen anything so. And you can see that if the water surface elevation here is at this level, and we call it hypereic flow, which is basically surface groundwater. Well, if the groundwater used to be, say, halfway up, the stream flow used to be halfway up, so another maybe 3 meters, maybe not quite that, maybe 2 meters. Well, then the hypereic flow, the groundwater over at the creek that we just looked at, presumably has a potential of dropping as a function of these massive pits.
Wow. The groundwater has the potential at Worth Creek of dropping because of what's happening in these pits, these holes dug here. Where was DFO to prevent this happening in the first place? You know, I think we need an Auditor General's investigation. I don't think DFO can investigate itself because obviously they have screwed up. Jack Emberly along to Fraser.